3, 2, 1. We are live now, sir.
Good evening, everyone. Today is 26th November 2022, and on this Saturday evening, I welcome you all on the behalf of the organizing committee of WIROC, that's Western India Regional Orthopedic Conference, which is the annual flagship event of the Bombay Orthopaedic Society. The 57th conference is planned from 28th December to 31st December 2022 at the Geo World Convention Center. The first day will be virtual day, followed by the next 3 days, which will be a physical event at the Geo World Convention Center. Through these weekly episodes of Curtain Raiser, the organizing committee, the executive committee of the Bombay Orthopaedic Society pays respect to the various faculties who have contributed to this and have been achieved various milestones. May I call upon the president of the Bombay Orthopaedic Society and the organizing chairman of WIROC 22 to give his welcome address. Over to Dr. Rajesh Gandhi, sir.
Dear teachers, my colleagues, and the senior members of Bombay Orthopaedic Society, I welcome you to the second episode of Curtain Raiser for WIROC 2022. Bombay Orthopaedic Society was formed in an era when there were no computers, there were no internet, there was no social media. The learning for the resident doctors or the young orthopedic surgeons was by books and by the teachers. Our teachers have played a huge role in shaping what we are today and what we are going to be tomorrow. When the Bombay Orthopaedic Society was formed, there were not many qualified orthopedic surgeons. I would say they were mainly the converts. I use the word that they were the general surgeons who had trained themselves in orthopedics, and I used to use the phrase that they were the converts. But they were the ones who nurtured the orthopedic surgeons of the today's era. When the BOS was formed, the orthopedic surgery in India was in an infantile stage. Our teachers, our forefathers has shaped and made them what it is today. It is a vibrant academic body which is being respected all over India and abroad. I salute all the teachers who have taught us and who has nurtured the whole generation of orthopedic surgeons who in turn has become good teachers. I welcome you to the second episode. Thank you.
So thank you, Dr. Rajesh Gandhi, sir, the organizing chairman and the honorary president of the Bombay Orthopaedic Society. The theme for today's evening is the era of eminent teachers. And first, we remember none other than the father of the Indian orthopedics, the late Professor Dr. K.T. Dholakia, sir. The personality of Dr. Dholakia, sir, was indeed towering and majestic, both literally and metamorphically. A teacher to all the finest teachers we have in contemporary orthopedics, a doctor to doctors, and a god for his patients. Dr. KTD, as he was commonly called, was worshipped alike by his fraternity and the family of patients in whose life he made a profound and a positive difference. May I call upon Professor Dr. Jawahir Pachore, sir, who has been closely associated with late Dr. K.T. Dholakia, sir, for over 3 decades, and who is currently working at Shelby Hospital, Ahmedabad, and a senior member of the Bombay Orthopaedic Society, to share his memories with late Professor Dr. K.T. Dholakia, sir. Over to you, Pachore, sir.
Thank you. Sure. Abhijit, can you see my screen?
Yes, sir. It's visible as well as audible.
Okay, okay. I must thank Bombay Orthopaedic Association for this opportunity. It gives me immense pleasure to summarize Professor K.T. Dholakia, a life sketch. He was a giant amongst the great. Yeah, it is not going forward.
Just tap on the screen, sir, then you can move it.
Huh?
Just tap on the screen once with your key and
Yes.
then try move.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Professor Dholakia created 5 academic institutions, which is well known in the country as well as outside the country, starting from Children Orthopedic Hospital, KEM Hospital, Bombay Hospital, Bridge Candy, and Hinduja Hospital. He was born on 12th August 1920 in Bhavnagar, Gujarat. He had initial education in Bhavnagar and Kota and finally landed in Mumbai and did his college education from St. Javiers College. He did the master's general surgery that time, 1946, and then he went abroad for MCH and FRCS. He finished in the same year, both the degrees. He got married to Miss Saroj Bain, and that time she was a queen of GS Medical College. In January 1965, Bombay Orthopaedic Society took the birth under the leadership of R.J. Katrak, A.K. Talwalkar, K.T. Dholakia. There were 7 attendees of Bombay Orthopaedic Club that was converted into a society. He practiced in the prestigious building, Patel Chambers, Opera House, where all the top surgeons and physicians had their own chambers. He was a president of various organizations. He was the first Indian to be a president of SICOT from 78 to 81, and before that he was vice president. He received numerous awards. Some of the prestigious awards were the Dhanvantari Award, International Master Surgeon, which is extremely rare. He also received Orthopedic Surgeon of Millennium Award from SAARC countries. Before he died, he also received a Lifetime Achievement Award from Dr. C.S. Ranawat. He was a great academician and delivered many orations, lectures in India and abroad. Government of India recognized his contribution, and it was 1973 he received a Padma Shri Award. He signed a WHO Year of the Child, which is a very rare occasion for any Indian at that time. He was the first Indian to be a member of Scoliosis Research Society and inaugurated the joint meeting of Japanese and North American Scoliosis Society. A talented man who could dance at the tune of the Japanese artists at that time. The SICOT was very close to his heart, and he was responsible for making this association visible across the globe. This is a rare photograph of the hotel where the SICOT was born. And the same hotel in 1978, Dr. Dholakia took over as a president. He inaugurated as a president in Brazil, and 1981, he handed over the presidency to Professor Muller. He also brought SICOT to Mumbai in 1980, and he inaugurated at Taj. He was responsible to bring a new chapter in surgery that was known as Surgery in Tropics in 1987, where the President Gyan Singh and Vice President Shankar Dayal Sharma inaugurated this meeting. He brought a galaxy of surgeons across the globe, and some of them to mention is C.S. Ranawat, B.C. Chacha from Singapore, Robert Owen, professor from Liverpool, Larry Dorr, Dinesh Patel, and Krishnan Barnar, a famous cardiac surgeon at that time. His Bombay hospital team always respected him and celebrated always on the 12th June every year his birthday. Before he departed, he received a Birla Award and was given to an outstanding personality in the medicine. I cannot forget to mention the personality who supported Dr. Dholakia throughout his career. A lady behind nobody than Dr. Mrs. Sarojben Dholakia. She sacrificed her career. She never practiced her gynecology because of his work. Dr. Junjunwala was associated right from 1962 till Sir was alive. And he was the main surgeon who assisted Dr. Dholakia all the time. Dr. Malhotra spent his lifetime. Dr. C.G. Pradhan worked very initially, and then he separated out as an independent surgeon. I joined him 1976 till 2004. Chetan Unadkar and Prabhakar Dholakia was also one of the team member of KTD. We cannot forget the other side of the specialty, that is anesthesia, and who was the part of the team of Dr. Dholakia. And I must mention late Dr. Y.G. Bhojraj, late Dr. J.S. Ambadekar, and young talented anesthetists Dr. Telang, Josna Maheshri, and Anil Parak. They contributed a lot to Dr. KTD team. Joint replacement theatre was a single theatre dedicated with a viewing gallery at that time during 1971 and 72. Dr. Dholakia always was in the process of upgrading newer advances and brought horizontal laminar flow, space suit, and finally he could build the modular theatres. I must thank Bombay Hospital management for dedicating one theatre on his name as a Dr. K.T. Dholakia joint replacement theatre. No surgeon can remain top for 50 years without his skill. And some of his surgical patients, I would like to put it, he was very fond of pediatric work, and he started with the pediatric practice. Look at the radial club hand and what he corrected. Grossly deformed CTVs, and look at the follow-up of almost 15 years follow-up of that with a normal fit. He operated 7 children from the same family, clubfoot, all the 7 clubfoot. And he almost did more than 3,000 CTVs during his career. He was a great reconstruction surgeon. You can see varieties of reconstruction he did, a lot of polio work, limb lengthening, and work. He could do it. He's also responsible to bring AO technology in this country, and look at the result of some of his patients. He was one of the pioneers to start the scoliosis work in India. At that time, only posterior surgery was common. He did a youngest child as a subcutaneous Harrington rod technique and with a fetal graft added during that time. And John Hall was responsible to bring the technology and for the scoliosis work. He also was a surgeon who started a tumor surgery way back in 1980s. One of his patients at 20 years follow-up of survival of osteosarcoma, I have to do an amputation because of some reason and not because of the recurrence. 1972, he acquired the original set of replacement set, John Chandler's set, but we got it from Frank Stinchfield from USA surgeon for some technical difficulty. He had always a team approach, and this team was known as a KTD team. And we did around more than 3,000 total replacement in that team. And this was a team which was named as KTD team. This was the first THR at Bombay Hospital in November 72, post-acetabular fracture. That was a technically difficult fracture at that time. And this is 22-year follow-up of that patient. And it happens to be a father-in-law of Dr. Mukhi, a well-known orthoplastic surgeon. These are his patients who had a 45 years of follow-up, had one revision because of the polywear and not because of the loosening of the component. He had a magic hand for cementing the acetabulum and the femur. Many surgeons had a different opinion regarding total hip replacement in a younger group of patients. He believed in a quality of life and always felt that the revision will be possible in near future, and this is today's reality. This is one of his patients at the age of 19 years, DDH with osteotomy, and he had the courage to do this surgery. And after 2 revision, look at the 46-year follow-up of this lady and a quality of life what this lady has achieved, even though she had a 2 revisions. We looked at the long-term results at 25 years of follow-up with the excellent survivalship of these components. During his time, he did the largest number of ankylosing spondylitis in the world and put a radiological classification in the literature. 1976 onward, he started doing a knee replacement, and Dr. Ranawat was responsible to bring the technology at that time. And this is a lady of 20 years follow-up of one of his patients with no loosening of the component in spite of total condylar design. We are able to start KTD Orthoplasty Fellowship, and this still continues. And this is the first batch. He always wanted to bring a new technology and travel a lot across the globe. And due to his dynamic personality and knowledge, he was able to bring the great surgeons to upgrade our knowledge in this country. Robert Salter came in 1977, and he did 2 osteotomies, Salter osteotomies, and I was lucky to assist one of them. Professor Muller, Professor Weller, Wagner, European group, very close to him, and he were able to help to conduct various seminars, live surgeries, and workshops. During 1985, there was a difference of opinion in a few European surgeons, and Dr. Dholakia was responsible to bring them together. I cannot forget the resident staff who worked with Dr. Dholakia throughout day and night to care his patients. And under Dr. Dholakia, as a resident, it was prestigious for anyone. I must thank Dr. Jhunjhunwala, who has kept Dr. Dholakia's academic activities under the Dr. K.T. Dholakia Trust. Mike Wableski, when I met Dr. Dholakia during 1980s, and Mike Wableski also visited Bombay Hospital in 2006 and 7, and he did a grand show of surgery. And you look at the hip, which was operated by a master from Chandle Group. He created a galaxy of orthopedic surgeons, and these galaxy created another generation of orthopedic surgeon. You must know this, Dr. The surgeons from all across the country. This grand departed on 17 June 2004. I'd like to share a short documentary film about this legend.
आजादी का सपना जैसे धरती पर उतर आया था। गुलामी की जंजीरें तोड़कर बच्चा बच्चा देश पर कुर्बान हो जाने के लिए बेताब था। ऐसे माहौल में जब नौजवान डॉक्टर केटी ढोलकिया ने पीड़ित मानवता की सेवा का संकल्प लिया, तो ये कोई आसान काम नहीं था। देश में न इलाज की बेहतर सुविधाएं थी और न ही विशेषज्ञ डॉक्टर। कदम कदम पर मुश्किलें थी और इलाज के लिए लोग इधर से उधर भटकते थे।
Yes, it is almost been 55 years. I was staying with an orthopedic surgeon in 1947. That was the first match to be taken soon after the Second World War. And at that time, the spectrum of orthopedics was very small. Very few operations were done.
50 सालों का सफर कोई छोटा मोटा नहीं है। आज उम्र के जिस पड़ाव पर डॉक्टर ढोलकिया हैं, वो अपने आप में रिकॉर्ड है। आज भी वे मरीजों को निराश नहीं करते। बॉम्बे हॉस्पिटल में आज भी उनकी व्यस्त दिनचर्या है।
Established the Center for Orthopedic Surgery and the Department of Orthopedic Surgery at the Bombay Hospital and Medical Research Center. This department was started right from the very beginning. The Bombay Hospital started. It's about a year and a half later, and Shiradi will ask me to establish this department. And I'm very happy to say, well, really hard for that. I'm very happy to say that this department today is considered the finest department of orthopedics in India, not only in Asia, but it is internationally.
और उनके अनुभवों का फायदा उठाया, लेकिन डॉक्टर ढोलकिया का असली सम्मान उनके मरीजों के दिलों में है, और यही बात वे अपनी आने वाली पीढ़ियों से कहते हैं।
You must work honestly. You must work hard. You must give proper satisfaction to the patients. It's very, very important. And I think the very important thing that one must learn is to converse and give all possible information to the patient about what you are going to do, what is going to be the result, what is going to be. And the things do not go the way you expect it to be. They should be properly informed and talked about. I think very well people are lacking in the province of that.
वे इलाज के नए तरीकों को नामंजूर नहीं करते, अलबत्ता उन्हें सावधानी से इस्तेमाल करने की सलाह नई शताब्दी में आने वाले डॉक्टरों को देते हैं। यही उनका संदेश है।
There are so many advances in the modern science. Every 2 years, there's a new thing coming up. We have the impression that every is fun. Watch carefully before you understand the idea of right.
क्या पूरे देश को गर्व है आप पर, गर्व है अपने आप पर, जो हम इस सफरनामे के सबूत के तौर पर मौजूद हैं। हम
Thank you for the attention. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Pachore, sir, for this wonderful illustration of the life sketch of Dr. K.T. Dholakia, sir. Late Dr. K.T. Dholakia, sir, was the past president of Bombay Orthopaedic Society, Indian Orthopaedic Association, CCOT, Associations of Surgeons of India, Indian Arthroplasty Association, Indian Arthroscopy Society, Indian Foot Society, and Association of Spine Surgeons of India. Indeed, his personality was towering and majestic. The organizing committee of WIROC Max 2022 is indebted to Dr. Pachore, sir, for joining this program and sharing a wonderful life sketch of Dr. K.T. Dholakia. We move over to the next eminent teacher of our episode, and the next teacher is none other than Dr. B.B. Joshi, sir. He was a gifted hand surgeon of his era. There is no greater reward for a doctor than being looked up by his patients, and one of his patients had fondly named his son after him. He ran his hand surgery unit at MGM Hospital, Parel, which was always buzzing with distinguished visitors. His legacy continues today in the form of JES fixator, Joshi external stabilization system fixator, which is commonly used for various open fractures in the body. Every international journal in 1970 published his path-breaking work And in fact, some of his pioneering work continues to be cited in all the landmark articles even today. To take us back to through the memory line, we have with us none other than Dr. Sudhir Warrior, who was associated with him for a long time. Dr. Sudhir Warrior is a noted hand surgeon and is the ex-president of Bombay Orthopaedic Society. Can we have the talk from Dr. Sudhir Warrior, sir?
आज तुमने क्या सीखा? Every evening on our return journey for 9 years, Dr. Joshi would turn around in the car and ask me, आज तुमने क्या सीखा? It was his way of finding out whether the day was productive and a way of looking back on the day's work to understand what was happening. And I had to come up with an answer every single day. Dr. B.B. Joshi, Brij Bhushan Joshi, completed his MBBS in 1950 and he did his MS in 1954 from Grand Medical College, and he was the first MS Orthopaedics in the entire country. He then moved to Irvine Hospital, now known as the LNJP Hospital in Delhi, where he learned a lot of spine surgery, got interested and mastered spine surgery, and then moved in 1962 to the MGM Hospital, where he did a lot of spine for these workers with a lot of back problems. But he also found that there's a ward full of patients with upper limb hand injuries from the industries, and he wasn't moving very far ahead with those patients. And so he began to develop hand surgery, and that's where I came across this genius in my early career. 12 years after he moved to MGM Hospital, he was visited by none other than Guy Pulvertaft.
Actually, Dr. Ankia too did not know about that at that time, So he brought him there to the hospital, and he couldn't imagine that there was a 30-bedded hospital, 30-bedded ward, which was exclusively on hand surgery, because being an ESIS hospital, MGM had all the cardiac injuries, the industry people came in, and they were very bad injuries. And when he saw how splints were made for the patients in the side ward, he was just so impressed that he was printing a book. He was the editor of Robin Smith, the edition. He asked them to hold on to the printing, and then he introduced this chapter, which was actually edited by Mr. Pulvertaft himself, because Dad was not a great writer, but he had all the material with him.
The flow never stopped. While we were with Dr. Joshi, we had Virgil Wood, Dror Pelly, Bruce Connolly twice, Hae-ryong Song from South Korea, and a host of others who came repeatedly to see him. I remember one dressing that I had done on the rounds. Dr. Joshi looked at it and said, "Ye kisne kiya?" And I owned up and said, "Sir, ye maine kiya." And he said, "Dressing aise nahi karte." And then he proceeded to call for the trolley and got the dressing done by himself. And then he put his arm on my shoulder, and he said, "Take a step back when you finish doing something. Look at it and think whether you can say with pride that I did this. And if you can, that means you've done that job to perfection." An absolutely shining pearl that I still continue to have as one of my targets for anything that I do. Anything you do, step back, look at it, and with pride you should be able to say, "This is what I did." Well, I learned my dressing art from him. Wonderful small things about how you can get the hand into a functional position with very simple material in the most elegant and lovely way. And once dressings were done,
I remember those days from 1965, for about 27 or 28 years, that Dr. B.B. Joshi I was associated with, and from 1982 till about 2007 or so, Sudhir, Dr. B.B. Joshi and me, we worked in our clinic every day morning from 6:30 onwards. Dr. Joshi's innovation was something out of this world. And he was so obsessed to help the needy that I remember he was working in ESI hospital, where mainly the poor people need workers to attend. And to treat them and see that they recover well, he innovated even the splints. So not only the man believed in clinical examination, surgical technique, but the most important part, the role of splints, which the art which we are all forgetting today.
And to help him on that, with that was Dattu, Dattatreya Lolam, who was in the ward, an ankylosing spondylitis patient, whom he trained to make splints of such a large variety with simple stuff that was available almost with no price to pay. And these splints have become some of the finest and the most easily recognizable splints across the world. These are the Dattu splints that Dr. Joshi devised. Once having done that, he was still unsatisfied because he would come across these very bad injuries like this one, and he just knew that stability is going to help these patients. He just didn't know how he could make them stable without internal fixation. So he tried wood, plastic reinforced, dental cement as external fixators until very fortuitously he came across Vinod Arora's thesis on external fixators. Dr. Vinod Arora is a practicing orthopedic surgeon in Indore. At that time, he was in Nanavati Hospital as a resident and had worked on external fixators. And that sowed the seed in Dr. Joshi's mind for the JES system, which he then created out of his ingenuity and saw to it that it started being utilized for various problems that he could not overcome with any other method earlier. And then he perfected this to a complete system, which then in small little booklets were published from time to time with a large amount of workshops being conducted.
The ideas in Dr. Joshi's head were artfully and quite creatively converted into reality through the magical hands of Dr. Hemant Patankar, who did a lot of work on JES at that time.
Dr. S.K. Bhandare, one of his colleagues, one day asked him, "Arey Bibi, aap club hand to kar lete ho, club foot kyun nahi?" And he picked that up as a challenge and immediately got to working on this problem and perfected the treatment of club feet using JES. And another manual came out with that. And this took this country by rage.
Did quite a few cases using the external fixator, not only just in CTV, but also in other congenital deformities. I had opportunity to be a faculty in the workshops conducted by him. Seeing my interest in the management of CTV, he asked me to be the joint editor in the book on congenital talopacic coronavirus assignment, and did it to my best ability.
Dr. Joshi developed a large number of flaps and was very adept at doing groin flaps and lat dorsi flaps, and he was the master technician of the radial artery flap, but yet he knew that microsurgery was something of the future, and he always tied up with different plastic surgeons, including Dr. Aditya Kaushik, his son-in-law, Lakshajit Dhami, and then Samir Kumta, so that microsurgery could also be added to our armamentarium.
He was the doyen of hand surgery and a man far ahead of his times, at a time when there were very few practitioners of the art and craft and a lot of skepticism about microsurgery. Dr. Joshi recognized its potential and its immense benefit to patients with hand injuries. And then began a great partnership. He started by throwing challenges at me. Toe transfer karega kya? And I went ahead and did probably the first toe transfer, successful toe transfer in Mumbai. ये fail नहीं होना चाहिए. Amputated hand आया है रोहा से. You have to do it today. I went ahead and did that as well. ये patient इसको flap करना पड़ेगा. You have to do a microvascular flap. So each time he threw a challenge at me, I went ahead and did it and sort of proved myself.
So, starting with a very simple problem of having noticed many hand injuries in his ward, he had now created a system where he could stabilize these. He involved plastic surgeons to get wonderful flaps that he was not skilled enough to do, because these were specialized surgeries which he thought that would be better dealt with by plastic surgeons, got them into it, got the splints going, and injuries that were before this time considered to be ready for amputation were now being converted into very useful earning hands.
See, he will not teach you in the on the table, when he's operating. And then when he's finished, he'll ask you, what did you learn?
His library was his temple. He sat in the library all day long and he looked over and over through all his photographs, saw what he had written about them, tried to find places where he could improve, and then read up a lot until he was satisfied.
When we asked him questions about why did he do a certain procedure, during the surgery he couldn't talk. He would just assist him. But as soon as the procedure was over and we would ask him, so why did he do this instead of this? Because the book says Littler's or Pulvertan or procedure reflective. And he would say, "Oh, lal wali thankfully ka kitab le." And that book wouldn't have been such for money. He knew exactly on what page that note was.
He then went on to write many articles, chapters, and produced large number of books on subjects varying from hand surgery to rehabilitation, and these have been extremely popular across the world.
I used to work with him in the evening hours to study his cases and analyze the results of treatment given. He guided me to design and apply just frames on bone models and subsequently on patients. I helped him in putting together the just manuals and documents and gave shape to his ideas. It was a great opportunity to work with Joshi sir.
The number of workshops he's conducted all across the world are quite legendary, and many students learned hand surgery, external fixation from him, and are successful practitioners today. After his library became very difficult for him to maintain, it was very gracious of Dr. Rajesh to house this lovely collection of some of the finest literature on hand surgery in Ganga Hospital in a ceremony befitting a king. And this is now housed in Ganga Hospital, and any one of us can actually go there and learn or read and see and pick Dr. B.B. Joshi's mind even today. Well, he had a very wonderful, happy family life, and here's what Sandhya has to say about that.
Satisfied person in his personal life, and the one credit because of that, is my mom. She made sure that he was not worried about the day-to-day mundane things, Like a checkbook would come from the bank, he would just blindly sign all the pages of the checkbook and hand it over to my mother. And she was the one, who would manage. She really didn't, she didn't really bother him, about anything.
Coming back to आज तुमने क्या सीखा? Just one day I just thought I'd say, sir, मैंने आज कुछ नहीं सीखा. Promptly he turned around and he said, तो कल से मत आना, तुम्हारी पढ़ाई खत्म हो चुकी.
Well, to end this, let's listen to the praise and unbidden recognition of every facet of my guru from none other than the chairperson of the Mahindra and Mahindra Group, Mr. Anand Mahindra.
I have two daughters. The younger one is now 33 years old. She's the mother of my grandson. When she was 1 year old, she was playing with a small glass bottle, a homeopathic bottle, and she fell. And the glass broke and severed a tendon in one of her fingers. We discovered that a severed tendon is a very serious matter. It might lead to immobility of the finger. We needed to get surgery quickly. So what did we do? We went to London. I went to Harley Street and asked for the best surgeon in the world. The surgeon said, fine, I have to keep it immobilized after I repair the tendon. It'll take a month. So we sat in London for a month, waited with bated breath to have the cast come out of this 1-year-old. When the cast came out, much to our dismay, my daughter's finger still wasn't moving. And the doctor had no clue. He said, oh, I'm sorry, it didn't work. And he said, the problem is that even when you join the tendon, it's not the surgery that is difficult. It's really the scar tissue that builds up during the healing. But if you get too much scar tissue, then it gets immobilized again. And he didn't have an answer. He was clueless. I flew from London to Paris because I was told there was Dr. Glichenstein, who was a very famous surgeon in Paris and knew about hand surgery. So I go to him and he's looking at me. He looks at the case and he says, why didn't you go to Dr. Joshi? I said, what? He said, Dr. Joshi. And I said, where is he? He said, he's in Mumbai. And I said, where? He said, he looked up his diary and he said, he has a clinic in Worli, 5 minutes from my office. I go to Dr. B.B. Joshi, one of the most humble people I've ever met. He said, I'll fix her. He took her into surgery. This is what he did to solve that problem. The surgery, as I said, was not the difficult part. When the surgery came out, he put a cast only up to the wrist. And as you can see in this diagram up here, he put a band, just a band on her wrist. He took a hook, the kind of eye hook that you find on a woman's blouse, and he sewed it into her fingernail. And then he put an eye hook in that band. He took a simple rubber band and he just put a rubber band between the finger and that band. What was his goal? His goal was to provide just enough flex so that the finger would heal, but there would be gentle movement enough not to allow scar tissue to immobilize it again. My daughter's 33. She plays the piano with that hand today. That's Dr. Joshi. This man passed away some years ago. His daughter called me up, unheralded, no hero. I don't even think he got any Padma Award. He was world famous. And his daughter asked me, can I publish his monographs? And I said, it's the least I can do. I published his monographs. But he's died unsung. And think of what we could have done if we had backed him with a better lab, with better equipment, asked him to do more in terms of his innovation. So that's just what I wanted to share with you, ladies and gentlemen, is that I have a very, very strong belief that the best innovation lies in our own backyard. And all I want to request you today is that we need to make, in my opinion, it a national goal to support our innovators, our brave innovators, in our journey from Jugaad to Jhakas. Thank you.
So thank you, Dr. Warrior, sir, for that wonderful talk. He took us down the memory lane, and indeed he made us feel nostalgic. Dr. Sudhir Warrior, a noted hand surgeon, is carrying forward the legacy of Dr. Bijlani Joshi, sir, in true sense. The organizing committee of WIROC Max 2022 is indebted to him for this wonderful memories he had shared. Next, the Bombay Orthopaedic Society is a scientific association formed with the sole purpose of propagating the art and the science of orthopedic academics. It was formed way back in 1965 by the efforts of few dedicated members who have nurtured it by their determination and dedication. WIROC, Western India Regional Orthopedic Conference, is the annual conference of Bombay Orthopaedic Society and is considered as the Mecca of orthopedics. It is being attended by orthopedic surgeons from all over the country. Regarded as the benchmark for all the orthopedic conferences, WIROC receives faculty from across the globe to share their knowledge and skills and impart it to the attending delegates. The WIROC for this year 2022 is scheduled from 29th to 31st December at the Geo World Convention Center, Mumbai. Tonight, we are going through the era of eminent teachers, and the next teacher we would like to remember is none other than late Dr. Jamshed C. Tarapurwala. He was better known as Dr. JCT Sir. He was a devoted teacher with an undying passion to impart knowledge that he enthusiastically as well as continuously gathered. His knowledge left a deep impression on every student who attended his postgraduate clinics. These postgraduate clinics were held every year. They were held twice a year for 6 Saturdays in a row at the JJ Group of Hospitals. He headed the Department of Orthopaedics at Grant Medical College and JJ Group of Hospitals. Each session would have a hall packed of students coming from across Mumbai, Maharashtra, and Gujarat. Today, we see his legacy being reflected in the achievement of his students in various orthopedic subspecialties. He believed that the true work of the art is but a shadow of divine perfection. Today, we have with us 2 of his students. First, Dr. Dominic De Silva, a consultant at Lilavati Hospital and Holy Family Hospital, will share his memories of Dr. J.C. Tarapurwala. Over to Dr. Dominic De Silva.
Okay, I think I must thank the Bombay Orthopaedic Society and in particular the organizers of the WIROC 2022 for asking me to say a few words to a great teacher, a great mentor, and later on a true wonderful friend. I'm talking about Dr. Tarapurwala. He was an orthopedic surgeon from the JJ Group of Hospitals and the Grant Medical College. He was the chief of the unit. We had 2 units in those days. One was headed by Dr. Vora, Praveen Vora, and the other by Dr. Tarapurwala. He was the head of the orthopedic department when we joined, and he continued to be the head of department for many, many years. During his illustrious career, he was the president of the Indian Orthopaedic Association, the Bombay Orthopaedic Society, and the Indian Society for Surgery of the Hand. During his period, in fact, before we could join as residents, even a house surgeon, there were many great personalities in this Department of Orthopedic Surgery at the JJ Hospital. One was Dr. Masalawala. There is a gold medal session in the IOA Con. Dr. Joshipura, as you see on the slide, standing in the center, and Dr. Vora. These personalities were there fairly a long time before we could join. So we didn't have much interaction with Dr. Joshipura, a little bit with Dr. Masalawala, because he would continue to come to the JJ Hospital whenever we would call him for complicated spine surgeries. I was very privileged to have worked with him as a registrar first for 2 years, subsequently as a lecturer in his unit at the JJ Hospital, and finally as an associate professor for a little more than a year. And I had a true idea of how Dr. Taraporvala worked, how his mind worked, his likes and his loves in the field of orthopedics. One of his chief likes was hand surgery. The other was tumors of the bone and joint system. So some of his plus points, it's not easy to do justice to a personality like Dr. Tarapurwala in this short 5 to 7 minutes that I've been allotted. But one of his chief likes was teaching. He was addicted to teaching. He would teach us whether we liked it or not, on our rounds, after our rounds, during surgeries, in between surgeries. He would continue to elaborate on certain simple things which are not written in textbooks. One of the most important things he would stress on was clinical basics, the examination of patients, conversing with patients, explaining to them their disabilities and their issues. So this is something which I picked up, and I am truly grateful to him for this, which has made me, I would say, a better clinician and a better doctor in all senses of the word. Common sense, he would try to hammer into our heads, was not so common. In the sense, one would keep coming up with newer techniques, newer implants, newer devices, and the majority of people would flock after these techniques without so much as a thought into what this leads to. The high failure rate, the learning curves for new techniques, and most important is, he would stress on, if you are happy with a certain procedure which gives good results, why switch over to something which has no clear advantage? So these are some things which I think are so important in today's life, with a rapid explosion in research, newer devices and newer techniques, that one tends to forget things that were old but still gold. Surgical censorship, I have coined this term because as residents, one would always be very keen on trying to get surgical work, sometimes without even thinking. So this was one of his important jobs that he undertook very well, I would say, to curb unindicated surgeries and to instill in all his students, his residents, the feeling of responsibility towards what one would do as far as patient surgeries are concerned. So I think these are a few basic things which, like I said, are not enumerated in your textbooks. His fondness for his alma mater was something which made us realize later. He would refuse to let go of us. He would finish his rounds. On Wednesdays, he would have something we call a grand round starting at 7:30 in the morning. He would always be punctual, continue with the rounds, prepare the surgical list for the next week, immediately run to his hand clinic, complete the hand clinic, and then still find time to spend with us. So for an honorary orthopedic surgeon, I feel, and I'm sure this sentiment is shared by almost all of us who were his residents, the time he spent in the JJ group of hospitals and the Grand Medical College was phenomenal for an honorary consultant. And cheers to him for that. Hats off. His sense of humor was infectious. He had an uncanny quality and a knack of keeping us always engrossed in what he said, and always interspersed with some funny, humorous remark which would make it difficult for us to want to leave him. He had a very special bonding for his residents, and which can't be said for many people, but he would always have this dinner party at his house once in 6 months, where he would invite his residents, and we would really have a really lovely time at his place. And he continued this tradition for as long as he was professor and head of department at JJ Hospital. A lot of credit needs to be given to him for having started what was the bone registry at the JJ Hospital. He, with Dr. Masalawala and to a certain extent Dr. Joshipura, had started a bone registry where cases, tumors, infections, unusual cases were documented, specimens were collected, preserved in formalin jars. Histopath, with the help of Dr. Chitle, who was the honorary histopathologist attached to the Grand Medical College Orthopedic Department. And we had some lovely samples, specimens of different tumors, all in our orthopedic seminar hall, which was quite remarkable, which was even better than what our JJ pathology department had. One of his favorite schemes was the hand clinic. He took great pains to start a hand clinic. He had special cabinets made to contain the folders. These folders would have an elaborate history, investigation slides, pre-operative, intraoperative, and post-operative slides, and a complete, well-documented scenario of any given patient. And this was further enhanced by the bone registry. Follow-up clinics and documentation, which he and his predecessors started and he continued, was something which was a little unusual for a government hospital and a government department of orthopedic surgery. He would have a system where patients, no matter how old, maybe 10, 15, 20 years, would come, and as long as they carried with them their case number, their entire file could be retrieved and we would know exactly what they went through from start to finish. And this was something which he followed every Friday. And because of this, he always insisted on proper documentation of every patient admitted under in the orthopedic department. His love for hand surgery was so great that the Bombay Orthopaedic Society hand course would always allot a couple of days to the JJ Hospital Orthopedic Department. First day would be for surgeries, which Dr. Tarapurwala would collect cases for, going back 2, 3, 4 weeks, collecting good, juicy cases, which would be a good representative sample of hand surgery for the delegates. And of course, one day would be allotted for a lecture, a guest lecture, or something of that sort. And of course, I don't have to mention his PG clinics. His PG clinics are just legend. We enjoyed collecting the cases for him, which he would do so every OPD, and even the indoor patients. He would collect these, keep them aside for the PG clinics, and he would spend almost the entire day teaching students. And we had great fun being a part of it, whether we were appearing for exams or whether we were just collecting cases. So these are a few of the points which stand out in my memory, and this all in addition to what he would do as a clinician attached to the hospital: rounds, OPDs, surgeries, plus administration as the head of the department. So you can imagine the amount of work this gentleman did. His legacy still lives on in the form of the Bombay Orthopaedic Society, JC Taraporvala PG clinics, which are actually a hit. And also hats off to those who helped to continue this: Dr. Karkhanis, Dr. Rujuta Mehta, Dr. Benoti, and the others. Also, the way his students conduct their practices, their lives, using his philosophies, which I enumerated earlier, I think that's another way by which his legacy will live on and continue to live on. I thank the BOS again for giving me this privilege. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dominic De Silva, for taking us down the memory line. We have another student of late Dr. J.C. Taraporvala, who will be sharing his memories. That it's none other than Dr. Shakir Kapadia, the professor and the head of the department at Saifi Hospital, Mumbai. He is also a JJ alumni and a student of Dr. J.C. Taraporvala, sir. Over to Dr. Kapadia, sir.
Dr. Jamshed C. Taraporwala. There are 2 E's in Jamshed, no E in Taraporwala, and there is no W. Well, you better get your spellings right or you are in for trouble. Raymond designed safari suits spotless shiny shoes, smart dark rimmed glasses, well balanced on his elegant Parsi nose. Well, that was always JCT for you. 6 Saturdays, every 6 months he conducted PG clinics in the Orthopaedic Seminar Hall on the second floor of the JJ Hospital main building. Started on the dot of 2 and wound up around 7. Well attended by budding postgraduate orthopods, not only from Mumbai, but also from other far off places. Each case was carefully screened, selected, investigated by boss himself, and properly noted in the small black diary that he carried in his pocket and neatly written in his gold and black pen. So many cases from his private clinic, and patients waited patiently for their turn for discussion. Always just and fair, all the students got equal attention. Maybe our friends from KEM Hospital across many bridges in Bombay got a few extra comments, but then that was a part of his fun. It has been such a long time, but all of us who've attended the PG clinics, I'm sure, remember this. The nameless, ageless hermaphrodite, the Otto Gravedigger syndrome, and the famous orthopedic hospital in Lalunagar with his 2 ward boys, Dhondu and Pandu, and how they expectantly are waiting with a bucket and a bottle when the surgeon is doing an excision biopsy of a swelling, and the surgeon knows that he has to go for histopathology and not in the bucket. The horse blinker attitude, dhapne, as boss always said, do not waver from the topic when you're giving your exams. Don't wander here and there. JCT was a teacher in the true sense. Your time with him was always a learning experience. Organization of clinical meetings, workshops, postgraduate exams, all planned, executed with precise military discipline. I follow the same in Saifi Hospital today. I do not know many examiners who would actually fail their own registrar. He did, and with all fairness and well justified. The ward rounds would start promptly at 7:30 a.m. on the dot. The ward round would be a grand affair. The sir would be there, Dr. Hakim, the reader, the lecturer, 3 registrars, 2 housemen, interns, the sister in charge of the ward, the physiotherapist, the orthotist, the social worker, the secretary, the lab technician, and a ward boy with a bowl of Dettol solution and a white clean towel neatly hanging on the left forearm. The OT list would be planned, who will operate, who will assist, a small break of coffee, and he would go to the hand clinic, which is an orthopedic feast. Mrs. Taraporvala, Matty, as boss always addressed her in front of us and otherwise, was such a charming, caring, dignified lady, a perfect match, who always made a point to remember your name and a small word for you. A perfect hostess, 2 dinners every year, lovely, sumptuous Parsi food prepared at home, partly by his cook Albert, who had bilateral excision arthroplasty hips, but walked without a Trendelenburg gait and equal limb lengths. And not to forget Ringo Tarapurwala, his dog, who was a very close family member and passed away when we were still in JJ at that time. Boss would always come at 7:30 a.m., but on a couple of occasions he came at 7 in the morning. So for us residents, it was that half an hour was very critical and killing. So something had to be done. So I called up Madam and spoke to her, and of course she said, "Kem che Shakir, how is everything?" So I told her, "Madam, jara last day Wednesday, sir, jara thoda 7 vage avi rya che." "Oh, samajh to nathi." And that was it. And next Wednesday, boss walked in at 7:30, a pretty stern looking face, but then by the time the round went on, everything was well. Research, library visits, and we had to present our work at WIROCs regularly, no excuses. He trained us how to present, how to prepare our work, our slides, how to speak, how to pause, how to see the time, that 8 minutes, 8.5 minutes, how to prepare for questions, everything. Every time a new drug, a new implant came, boss was always very firm that don't think that you are old fashioned and you don't know anything. Wait, let other people use it, let them make the mistakes. If it last time, then you can use it. even after he left, we kept in touch, had dinners together with him and the rest of us, and talked about old times, new developments, with which he was always keeping abreast. Golden words of advice, care and affection, Dr. Jamshedji Tarapurwala. You will live forever in your students and their students too, as you said. When we had his farewell, we prepared a small booklet. Some of you might be having it, I don't know. I'm just sharing a picture of that with you. I'm sure you can see it quite well. A short history, as boss always said, and we are the other side, all of us have signed. And this was suggested to us by Dr. Ashok Johari. So this was the system apparently at the MCH course, and Ashok thought that why not we also implement it. Okay, I'm sure all of us have very fond memories of Sir. And I think now we have to get ready for WIROC as it starts in December. Thank you very much.
So thank you, Professor Dr. Shakir Kapadia, for those wonderful memories. The Bombay Orthopedic Society has initiated a postgraduate teaching activity in the name of late Dr. J.C. Taraporvala, sir, who was known for his famous Saturday clinics at JJ Hospital. Today, our next eminent teacher is late Dr. Joy Patankar. He was a man who loved life and lived his every moment with passion, whether it was his love for cricket or his passion for orthopedics. Dr. Patankar at a young age achieved a lot for which others need a lifetime. He was a teacher par excellence, known for his extempore bedside clinics on various aspects of orthopedics, including his famous lectures on poliomyelitis and cerebral palsy. To share memories with late Dr. Joy Patankar, may I call upon Dr. Sandeep Patwardhan, a noted pediatric orthopedics surgeon practicing in the city of Pune. Over to you, Dr. Patwardhan.
Good evening. Good evening. This is Dr. Sandeep Patwardhan, and I am happy to be here, part of WIROC Max 2022, speaking about my friend, philosopher guide, Dr. Joy Patankar, in the session on the era of great teachers. What can I say about Joy? Joy was a simply brilliant man, a gem who was snatched away from the orthopedic fraternity in the very prime of his life. His stay on this earth was short, but it was amazing, fruitful, innovative, and educative. I came to know Joy as my teacher. In fact, I was his first postgraduate student in Sion Hospital when I joined as a postgraduate resident in 1991. And I can very vividly remember my first day. I came into the hospital gates, and in the resident quarters, there was a small katta on which Joy was sitting, having a cup of chai with a cigarette in his hand. And that day I had turned up a little late, and Joy just shouted at me and said, "You want to be an orthopedic surgeon? You cannot afford to come late. There's so much work waiting in the wards for you." And he just put me to it right then and there. Joy was a brilliant man who thought vividly. His imagination, his expressions, and his way of simplifying the most complicated matters and explaining it to the students in their own language, using humor as a tool, was exemplary. He not only instilled the love of orthopedics in his students, as well as all the people whom he came into contact with, but he also made them realize that it's important to think about the future and train yourselves accordingly. In the OT in those days in Sion Hospital, we used to do K nailing, which was retrograde. Most of us used to open the fracture, pass the nail retrograde, and hammer it back in. But in Joy's unit, he made us do antegrade nailing without opening the fracture, because he said, "Boys, the era of interlocking nailing is coming. And unless you practice now how to put the nail from the piriform fossa, you will not be able to do interlock nail. So he taught us in advance his thoughts on pediatric orthopedics, DDH, his innovative ideas about differential distraction. He collaborated with Dr. V.B. Joshi and came up with the UMEX fixator, the modification of V.B. Joshi's fixator. And we worked a lot on clubfoot. He was instrumental in getting Shafiq Pirani to the BOS WIROC in 2005. And then that is where the Ponseti era boomed in Mumbai and then the rest of the country. He brought in Professor Graf from Austria and told us the ultrasound is going to be the stethoscope of the orthopedic surgeon. Learn to use ultrasound, and you can see that he taught us not only how to do a hip screening for DDH, which has become so big today, and he also said that the ultrasound will help us look at soft tissue lesions like the rotator cuff, the tennis elbow, the calcaneal bursitis, and so many other conditions. Joy was a loving father, a passionate teacher, and a farmer at heart. He used to take all his residents and he used to travel to Pandharpur where he had his farm, and he spent great time there, even there teaching us about orthopedics. He was a philanthropist. He took us on charitable surgical missions. We operated on the Lifeline Express in Chiplun, in Ratnagiri. He was a big Rotarian. He took us to Chandausi in Uttar Pradesh, and he collaborated with many people from abroad, Dr. John Clegg, Dr. Sally Scott, Dr. Azriel Benaroya, to name a few. And he took all of them to the interiors of India and made them work in conditions which were really not what they were not used to. And that was joy for all of you. I remember him very fondly as a great teacher, a great human being, and he was extremely passionate. My thoughts won't end here. I'm going to play you a video, a video of his peers, friends, who will talk about Joy as they knew him, and then his family. So let's hear from his peers, friends, and students.
Joy was a man of all seasons, a multifaceted personality. He was very unassuming and could handle any orthopedic issue under the sun. Or why any orthopedic issue? For that matter, any issue.
Was he only good in orthopedics? Absolutely not. Orthopedics, I feel, was just a small part of Joy's vast knowledge and his desire to learn new things every time.
Joy was not only a great teacher, but a fabulous mentor for a whole generation of orthopedic surgeons who passed out of Sion Hospital.
He lived by the principle that knowledge is something that needs to be shared, and when you share knowledge, your knowledge grows.
Whether it was in our morning teaching sessions at Sion Hospital or the round table in the canteen in the afternoon, Joy was very opinionated, spoke with authority, and everyone around him listened to him and admired him.
Joy Patankar was my formidable senior, a GS topper, and then my best friend Dipti's husband.
Joy was a multifaceted personality. He could expound on any topic with great convincing power for hours together.
जॉय बद्दल काय बोलू? माझ्या आयुष्यात दोन अतिशय हुशार म्हणजे गिफ्टेड म्हणतो ना अशी दोन माणसं माझी झाली. त्यातला एक म्हणजे जॉय. जॉय म्हणजे एक अक्षरशः उत्साहाचा एक झरा असायचा कायम.
Joy was an excellent teacher, and his oratory skills as well as his teaching skills was second to none.
A huge vision for his private setup and many surgeons coming together under one roof and practicing the state of the art of the orthopedics in various subspecialties of orthopedics.
He was truly good at dreaming big, and he had and I marveled always at his business acumen.
Friends, anyone who came into contact with Joy in KEM will remember
the enthusiasm and the energy that he imparted to any conversation or discussion.
He was big, but his heart was bigger.
Joy was a gentle giant with a larger than life personality, a very caring soul with an iron fist.
त्यावेळेला तो इथे यायचा, ऑपरेशन्स करायचा, विद्यार्थ्यांना शिकवायचा आणि रात्री आमच्याबरोबर बसताना नुसती हसाहशी धमाल.
I remember Joy, his minimum physical movement, his hearty laugh, the smoke curls, and his inability to absolutely tolerate fools.
I found he had a passion for teaching, and he found that I had a passion for teaching. And he told me, Anagha, एक करायचं, शिकवण्यासाठी पैसे घ्यायचे नाही, दिल खुला शिकवायचं रेसिडेंट्सना.
In the midst of a class, he would come up with Maharashtrian colloquialisms, which we used to call joyisms, which would make us roll with laughter. If a resident presenting a case was beating around the bush, Joy would say, Baap dakhav kiva shraddha kar, meaning either prove your point or bury the thought and move forwards.
His largesse literally came through over a table which was laden with lot of food, drink, sparkling conversation, and then some more.
And knowledge he did have, not just on the core subject of orthopedics, but on so many different diverse subjects, whether it was international history, whether it was Indian history, whether it was mythology, whether it was sports.
Joy was not only a great teacher, a friend, but he was also a great family man. I remember that at least once or twice a week, he would take the morning off and would drive all the way down to Panvel to take his children for horse riding.
It's been 15 years since Joy has left this world. But his memories, his teachings will always continue to guide me and all of us. On this special occasion of Teachers' Day, we remember Joy with great pride. Let us pledge today to take forward his legacy and his teachings. Joy, we miss you.
Joy, it's been so lovely to meet you as a person, and we of course cherish your memories, and you'll be missed forever. You will stay in our hearts forever. Joy.
I will always be grateful to him for that. He will always have a special place in our memories.
And I, for one, will miss him forever, and he'll live in our hearts forever.
Joy, I'm sure all of us will have the same sentiment here. We miss you, and we could have learned so much more.
And Joy, wherever you are, I know that you're not only looking and blessing Deepti, Malvika, your grandchild, Yash and Nikki, who's a doctor now, and you're looking at all of us.
Joy, wherever you are, we all remember you. We thank you for all that you have done for us and hope that God keeps you blessed forever.
Joy left us in one fell swoop, a joy-sized vacuum in our lives. Nilesh and I will always miss you, Joy.
It was a pleasure to know him. And I only hope wherever he is, just like his name, he will be spreading joy. And I'm quite sure that is how it would be, just like he gave us the joy when he was around us. What a lovely person.
And that was Joy for all of you who didn't know him. A great teacher, a great friend, a great family man. And talking of family, I'll end this brief introduction and remembrance of Joy as a great teacher by a small 1-minute video by his children.
अपूर्वकोऽपि कोशोऽन्यं विज्ञते तव भारती व्ययतो वृद्धिम् आयाति क्षयम् आयाति sanchayata. O Goddess Saraswati, your treasure is unique in nature. It increases when it is freely spent and gets destroyed if it is hoarded. Joy, our Baba, lived by this Subhashit. He loved to learn and share his knowledge. Whether that was in lecture halls across the globe or during long car rides with his family, he was always a sight for sore eyes and a balm for the soul.
We loved him, looked up to him, and learned so much from him. 1.5 decades have gone by in the blink of an eye. We miss him every minute of every day and imagine that he would have loved to witness our lives and all our achievements.
He may not be of this realm, but we include him in every moment. We know that he watches over us and he will always be the joy of our lives. We know that his family, his friends, colleagues and students all miss him dearly, but we all cherish his memory and let it live on.
As Thomas Campbell wrote, "But strew his ashes to the wind, whose sword or voice has served mankind. And is he dead, whose glorious mind lifts thine on high? To live in hearts we leave behind is not to die."
With that, I would like to again remember Joy as a great person, and I would like to thank the Bombay Orthopaedic Society sincerely for this opportunity to share this video about a great teacher, a great mentor. Thank you, Rajesh Gandhi. Thank you, Ashish Phadnis. Thank you, Abhijit Kale.
Thank you, Dr. Sandeep Patwardhan, a noted pediatric orthopedic surgeon based in the city of Pune, for taking us down the memory line. Late Dr. Joy Patankar was an innovator and a thinker who was way ahead of his times. He conducted multiple workshops and teaching sessions all over the state for young orthopedic surgeons and those in orthopedics practice, especially in rural areas. The Indian Orthopaedic Association has initiated Dr. Joy Patankar Gold Medal for Best Paper in the field of pediatric orthopedic and trauma at its annual conference. It is said that there is no substitute for hard work. Similarly, righteousness is a quality that cannot be learned or developed. It is innate and imbibed by the inspiration of teachers and mentors. This episode of today was created with the same mindset to inspire the young members of Bombay Orthopaedic Society, who we believe will work hard. This is the only guaranteed path to excel in professional and personal life. May this episode inspire the future generations of orthopedic surgeons to inculcate clinical and other means to achieve scientific goals and strengthen this association. Before we come to close, may I call upon my colleague, Dr. Ashish Phadnis, the organizing secretary of WIROC Max, to update us on this year's conference and what's new over here. Over to Dr. Ashish.
Thank you very much, Dr. Abhijit. And what a wonderful evening this has been of us going back down the memory lane to see what the eminent era, eminent teachers were in that in the era. It is precisely on these giants on whose shoulders that we are standing. So taking that further, we would like to enhance our sort of academic commitments and continue them in the forthcoming event, which is the WIROC Max. WIROC, as we know, every year it is conducted in December, is the annual conference of the Bombay Orthopaedic Society, and in the 57th year, this year we are conducting it between the 29th and to the 31st of December in a physical form, and on the 28th it is going to be on a virtual platform. We plan to highlight a lot of surgeries which will be sort of conducted, and the delegates will be taken through the steps by the eminent sort of opinion leaders in the specialty. This year we moved to a new venue. It's a bigger venue, so it can accommodate more number of people. Multiple sessions can go on simultaneously. And this will be the main hall, which is the Geo World Convention Center in the heart of Bombay, which is very well connected to the rest of the city. Very well sort of ample parking space and ample opportunity for us to network, to meet friends, and to form new fellowships and friendships. So we plan a lot of sessions in 4 different halls. As I said, we are going beyond the conventional, and this time, apart from academics, we also promise you various new things such as plenary sessions, which are there, case-based scenarios. Moving a little bit away from the didactic lectures, we'll be having more number of workshops for the technically or technologically inquisitive. We will have a robotic zone, a virtual reality sort of training zone. We received a large number of abstracts, which was a record number of abstracts over the last so many years, which only tells us about the popularity of the event. And we would leave no stone unturned to make sure that everyone has a sort of a presence, a voice in this particular conference. We have got a large number of registrations, and we are looking at a record number of registrations this year. So it is new in WIROC this year. So every year something new gets on added as we come out of the WIROC Unlock, WIROC Global, and now we have this WIROC where we are planning to highlight certain social skills or anything other than orthopedics that the orthopedic surgeon or our members are sort of indulging in. There are people who are indulging in paintings, in crafts, in photography, in music, in dance, in sort of writing, poetry, literature. So we would like to highlight these. We would like to welcome our members to showcase their talents, to inspire and innovate, and sort of inspire and motivate the rest of us to sort of take these habits. There will be a hobby corner where these people who are sort of experts in their hobbies can guide the next generation or the other people who would like to take on these hobbies and sort of take them on. So we would be having a kaleidoscope and a sort of hobby corner in the hall itself. There's a large trade area, so we are looking at a bigger trade participation, which would give a lot of exposure to the orthopedic surgeon of across all the specialities in orthopedics, right from joint replacement to trauma to spine to virtual reality platforms to softwares and to splints and orthotics, along with a large sort of ability to try these newer technologies with their own hands in our hands-on workshops and in specially dedicated zones which are meant for this purpose. Along with this, in the evenings we would have our sort of a entertainment program where we have taken care to ensure that the delegates would have their share of relaxing, unwinding, and meeting their friends on the 29th, 30th, and the 31st night. So we look forward to welcome you at the Geo World Convention Center, and the residential accommodation will be made at the Hotel Trident at the BKC and the Hotel Sofitel, which will just be next door. So having said that, on behalf of our executive council, executive committee, and the organizing team, we would like to welcome you all for the WIROC this year. Thank you very much. Have a good day, and we hope to see you same time next week for our next episode on Curtain Raiser. Over to you, Abhijit.
Thank you to my colleague and friend, Dr. Ashish Phadnis, for updating us on WIROC, the annual flagship event of Bombay Orthopaedic Society. With a folded hands, I request all of you all to register for this conference and attend this event, which is considered as the Mecca of orthopedics. It's one of the most eagerly awaited event of the year. As we draw close to this program, we look forward to seeing you back next week with more unfolding events which have reshaped the history of Indian orthopedics. See you, bye-bye, and good night from the organizing committee of WIROC Max 2022.
Thank you.
Hello.